good, we're good, right? Yes. Got to keep everybody on their toes. Second, I love that you tripped on the word Jews in the reading. I actually didn't catch that the interpretation I used that word in that sentence, and just want to note that it obviously is not all Jews that the disciples were afraid of, and we always try to use language that does not feed the anti-Semitic views that can come out of our New Testament sometimes. There was definitely a small group of leaderships and the powerful Romans who were chasing the disciples at that time. So, put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe. These moments, these stories of the resurrected Christ included in Gospel of John are so intimate. Last Sunday we had the story of Mary Magdalene, hearing her own name, triggering reconciliation, maybe a hug, maybe. Definitely a strong relationship reconnected. This week, Jesus visits the frightened disciples locked away in the upper room, and he shares the word of peace and the breath of the Spirit. The breath of the Spirit, so intimate. It's no wonder that much of Christian theology, liturgy, practice focus on a personal relationship with Jesus. These stories can lead us there. We can focus on our own individual piety, our individual prayer and practices, our individual name being called. And then we have Thomas. At first glance, it seems like the story of Thomas is an individual call. Thomas is not there when the other disciples see the risen Jesus, and Jesus comes back for the one non-believer to believe. Brings us back to the parable of the shepherd leaving the flock to seek out the one lost sheep. We also tend to think that Thomas was the one disciple who needed proof before he believed. Something concrete. That sounds right in our postmodern ears, feels right in our scientific method world. And there has been so much debate in the church since the Enlightenment that somehow those who need evidence are not true believers. And learning things about our world that may contradict our Christian tradition is the stuff of heretics. We should not allow the facts to interrupt our faith. Well, that interpretation of this story has caused some problems. Probably has caused some people to leave Christianity. I see the Thomas story a little differently. Thomas doesn't ask for anything more than what the other witnesses of the risen Christ received. Mary had her name called. The frightened disciples were provided a lot of things. They were provided comfort and peace. They got to talk to Jesus and remind them of their time with him. They were reminded of what Jesus wants them to do. And they were given the Spirit to help them to go out and bring peace to the world. Thomas just wants that same connection to Jesus. He wants his opportunity to reconnect in relationship with his teacher. Jesus provides that opportunity. Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe. Jesus reconnects with Thomas. Reconnects their relationship. And in a close reading, Thomas doesn't even really need to touch the wounds to believe. Right? There's nothing in the reading that says he actually does it. Right? He just needs the invitation. He needed to be reconnected. Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." The beloved community was now complete, whole. The lost sheep has now been found and brought into the fold. The disciples can now move together out into the world and begin their ministry. A large part of the Gospel of John is dedicated to Jesus saying goodbye to his disciples and giving them instruction to live and work together to change the world. The Gospel of John was written for the generations to come who never met Jesus during his ministry. These stories of relationship and community are the transition from walking with Jesus physically on earth to walking with Christ in community and love in our world today. It is relationship, community, that has continued the love, justice, and peace of Jesus' ministry for 2,000 years. God holds us together. It is in community that we experience the proof that God is with us, and there is eternal hope for justice and peace in the world. On Earth Day, I've been thinking a lot about this. I have to admit that I'm a late convert to the environmental movement. Earlier in my life, I experienced many political actions by local environmental groups that seemed to really be thinly disguised, not in my backyard protests, the NIMBY that we call it. I witnessed many suburban white people arguing that a power plant should not be built in their town, development of houses should not destroy their local park, that trash and pollutants should be trucked somewhere far away so that their land could be pristine. There seemed to be a lot of focus on my land, my park, my trees. It's just my experience. A few years ago, I was exposed to the environmental justice movement, a movement that focused on asthma in the inner cities, the concentration of power plants in poor neighborhoods, the lack of resources and investment to get lead out of water in certain neighborhoods, pesticides sprayed downwind from wealthy neighborhoods, but covering farm workers' houses, and the displacement of human beings for large energy infrastructure. Entire Black neighborhoods purchased by oil and coal companies, generational wealth destroyed. These stories, these impacts on people I did not know, broke my heart open. I don't dismiss the importance of environmental movements, preserving open spaces, saving entire species from extinction, encouraging sustainable practices, and just teaching overall interconnectedness like we did this morning of everything on this planet are still really important. And the environmental justice movement reminded me that power and wealth can protect some of us from the impacts of abusing our environment. Bubbles of protection can be created that stop some of us from seeing the catastrophic impacts of our own behaviors. There are people, families, and children who are getting sick, living shorter lives, not being allowed to thrive, directly due to the actions of the broader population. My actions. The impacts of our actions have been purposely focused on people who don't have the power to stop them. When we worry about rising temperatures, water levels rising, weather patterns becoming stronger, I know in my heart, or my brain maybe, I still believe that someone, somewhere, is going to come up with the technology to save me. How about you? And that is probably true. There is a lot of money and power who want my neighborhood, my family, to be safe. I don't think that's something that everyone can count on. I think there are going to be a lot of people without money and power who are going to be sacrificed before we do anything. The migration, the forced displacement of people in this world has just begun, my friends. It's just begun. Well, what does this have to do with Thomas, Fran? The interpretation of Thomas as the individual needing concrete proof of the risen Christ tells us one way to look at our world's environment. The belief that individual piety and practices saves me tells me one way of viewing my responsibility in this world. When we see Thomas as the doubter who needs proof and as the individual believer who can be saved through his own piety, that allows us to say a lot of things here and now. It allows us to say, I need proof before I can act. I need to experience something myself in order to act. As long as these things aren't impacting me, I'm safe. Or the best, God will save me. Is that what Jesus was teaching when he came back for Thomas, the one lost sheep? Or did Jesus come back to his frightened flock one more time because they were not yet whole? Jesus came back with a message of peace, the breath of the Spirit, and a healing act to make his beloved community whole. No one left behind. Whole, the disciples were sent out to bring love, justice, and peace to the world, to heal those who are sick, to feed those who are hungry, to break the prison doors open for justice, to bring water to those who are thirsty. What does that mission of the disciples mean for us today on Earth Day? If we are called disciples, are we stuck in the upper room, afraid and divided? Or do we see the love of God around us, calling us to be in relationship with all of our neighbors, to be whole? I truly believe that the majority of the problems in our world can be solved if we talk to each other, listen to each other's life experiences, and believe each other. Don't see a lot of that nowadays. If we could only reach out and touch each other's wounds instead of trying to protect ourselves in bubbles of distrust, denial, and self-focus, we could do big things that could save so many people from harm. We can just start by believing other human beings, because our human stories will show us how much we're impacting the rest of creation. And maybe then we can start to see and respect what other creatures are telling us about the state of the world. The possibilities of healing and transformation are endless. And God is in it all, waiting for us to reconnect in relationship, become whole, and walk out of the upper room together. This is what I pray for my heart, for our hearts, to be open to each other. Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe. Amen. I invite our senior choir for the anthem, Prayer of St. Patrick.